we both have the same basic ideas about being born again and sanctification and growing in the spiritual life, but have completely different ways that plays out. I think also there is it sounds like we both want consistency. We both have the goal of presenting the gospel in the most consistent way for the atheist who whether it's their fault, our fault, both at the same time, there's something is naturally inclining them to look at the Christian faith as irrational and incoherent. And we would both share the goal of showing how consistency is the Christian reality, but then kind of radically differ on the means of arriving at consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it does, I would say it's easier in certain respects for you as a creationist to simply say, I'm consistent. This is how I'm viewing things. I have my lockbox of orthodoxy, and we're going to kind of be maintaining this. And that's the main priority. And I have sympathy for that view. But it gets difficult until you try to evangelize someone who knows this particular issue better than yourself as an individual. I'm not saying anything personally, right? This could be for anyone, right? And so as soon as you lose, this might be the only opportunity they have to hear the good news. And in that instance, an individual creationist might not have enough knowledge to convince them of scientific particulars. And because of an irrelevant, ever-changing, and fickle system of study, therefore you've lost that soul as a case for evangelization. And I think that's where it gets difficult. That's the pro and the con, as I see it. My blessing might be that I'm able to sidestep the issue of creation and evolution and say, sure, I believe, origin of species, guided natural selection, so on and so forth. I agree with you. Neanderthals, dinosaurs, Homo sapiens. I can sign off on that, right? But as science develops and as science changes, the burden for me might be looking at various difficulties that an evolutionary worldview might propose, like how do we account for Adam and Eve as figures that fell? What does a fall look like when you don't have necessarily a literal man and woman? Do you have a literal man and woman in a Christian evolutionary worldview? Animals apparently died for hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if not billions of years before you had Adam and Eve, but the fall was the introduction of the death. Now, these might be insurmountable, but I don't think they are. And I think a Christian who is trained to give a good defense of their worldview is able to give a coherent worldview, just as a creationist might be able to give an explanation for how you could have days before there was a sun, 24-hour days before there was a sun, or you could have the issue of two human people and two pairs of animals in various instances throughout Genesis, producing offspring that were not horribly deformed through inbreeding, right? Now, all of these pose problems to the Christian, and the atheist would say, well, this means that the Christian worldview is incoherent. But I would say that, no, one is able to give a coherent defense, the caveat being, I think that the creationist worldview is false. Therefore, it's difficult to defend something that doesn't align with truth because God did not author it. Therefore, it is a falsehood. Therefore, it is not possible to rationally defend except by using means that are intellectually insufficient, if that makes sense. And again, I'm sympathetic to the creationist worldview. This is just my perspective on the matter.
And I would likewise or reverse argue that the creationist position would be that evolution itself as an idea, the Big Bang cosmology as an idea, is inherently atheistic, and therefore attempting to meld the two or interpret Christian ideas in light of these things is an inherent, it's a fool's errand. It's the analogy I came up with was that it'd be like attempting to go to Baal worship in the Old Testament and use that to demonstrate that there is only one true God, that yes, I think there is, and we alluded to this in a previous program. I don't think there's zero value to that, but it says more about the minds of the people developing these ideas, I would say, than it does about the ideas or any connection to reality themselves. That, for example, that apparently like Big Bang cosmology is unavoidably moving towards a definite beginning and some sort of basically intelligent force that had to be behind that you could say, one, that the evidence for that is so overwhelming that even when you have what I would call a very clouded and confused sort of approach to it, you still can't get away from that basic reality, that the basic science everyone agrees on is just overwhelmingly clear. And that when modern physicists and astronomers and such try to get away from that, they end up sounding basically like Buddhists or other worldviews that don't even concern themselves with rational consistency, because it's esoteric more than it's rational and physical. So there is that. But I would just say if you look at Baal worship, you can get the outlines of the truth, but you also get a whole bunch of man-made nonsense that by definition cannot point to the one true God and creator, because it was specifically designed by men, I think we both agree, in the original worship in ancient paganism, kind of aided by demon encouragement to specifically point people away from the one true God and give them kind of a paltry substitute that still fulfills the basic human need without sort of the moral requirement that comes from the law of God and the command of God.